People who have jobs they genuinely love and enjoy. What is it and how did you get into it? Archaeologist. I'm back in school right now to get a master's so I can hopefully lead my own digs one day, but even shovel bum jobs are amazingly rewarding. Sure. The days are long and you're out in the hot sun. But when you find something old and cool you really feel like a treasure hunter. Shovel bum jobs. This sounds like something a British person would search for on Pornhub. Indiana Jones and the Shovel Bums, and XXX parody. FTFY, Indiana Jones and the Shovel Bums, and XXX parody. Typesetter here. Liked books, so I got a job in publishing after graduating. Turns out I was made for this. It's the perfect balance of logic and art. And I basically get to read for a living. Hello. Would you mind elaborating on your day-to-day responsibilities and duties? I feel like I would love this job or my perception of it. Thanks. Sure. The company I work for does the design and setting of manuscripts for some pretty big publishers. Across all genres, except children's, that's usually done by or in tandem with the illustrator. So we take the edited text file and set it using Adobe InDesign or Quark, applying typefaces, sorting, justification and hyphenation. Using grep, a kind of programming I guess. We will also do some illustrations, like if there are ornaments, and some image formatting if there are plates, sections or integrated images. Then there are a round of corrections from the editor and proofreader. It's the kind of thing where it's easy to do an okay job at, but actually really hard to do an amazing job at. If you're interested in becoming a typesetter, I'm happy to give you some tips. Main thing is just to learn how to use InDesign and / or Quark, the basics of grep, and read the Oxford Style Guide, UK, or Chicago Manual of Style, US. Also helps if you know how to read proofreaders' marks. Wow, I have never even heard of this job and it sounds like something I would be perfect for. Do you work in an office or is it / can it be done remotely? With the skills you mentioned, is there also a specific type of degree? Or are there certificate programs that teach you those skills? And yeah, like how do you really get started? Thanks. Currently working remotely, but usually we're in an office. I just have a generic English Lit degree and didn't know anything about graphic design or art before I started, but some of my colleges come from graphic design backgrounds. I'm sure there are certificates out there, but I wouldn't pay for them. Like I said in another reply, just download public domain texts and practice. The software can be pretty expensive, but you can technically use Word. Mostly, you need to know about paragraph and character styles. And then general typesetting rules, such as those surrounding and /m rules. I'm a private chef on a super yacht. I got it because I used to work in Michelin star restaurants in London. I was tired of working so hard and then seeing so much of my salary get wasted on rent and cost of living in London. I figured out that you get to keep 100% of your salary if you live on the yacht. A bonus right now is that we're moored up on an island that has no cases of coronavirus at all. The pay is way more than what you would get as head chef in a restaurant as well. The crew I work with are all great and I get to cook with the best ingredients with almost an unlimited budget. I couldn't be happier. Edited a word. That sounds like an awesome job if you're single. Holy shit, I want. And all you have to do to get it is work in Michelin star restaurants in London. You just have to rise to the top of your profession. Law. No biggie. I basically came into the thread to say something similar anyway. I love my job, mostly because I'm really good at it and others are constantly asking me technical questions that I can easily answer. Huge ego boost every day. Law. When's the McRib coming back? Not even one lawyer. Hey. It seems I made a mistake after all. While I'm taking a Reddit break from studying for the LSAT and I was viciously scrolling through these comments looking for a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. I've never, in my entire life, met someone who really, truly enjoys it. Just don't do it. Do anything else. Seriously. That's crazy. I have 8 close friends who are lawyers and all love it. I've been a policy guy most of my life. As in read cases for fun. And while there are lots of directions to go, law appeals to me the most. I commented in this thread as well, but his experience isn't the only one. I make good money. Have a good balance, and so do most of my friends. The big firms are churn and burn, but that's not the only option out there, and they typically start with great salaries but top out earlier. I made probably half of what my friends at the big firms made year 1, but I've easily passed them by year 5, and there is no cap on what I'm capable of making, and I don't do billable hours. Law is a massive category, and there are a ton of options out there that could make you happy. I build and work on race cars. It's the coolest job in the world to me. I work for a team and do stuff on the side as well. I helped on race teams for years just for fun. And as I learned more and got better at it, it slowly morphed into a paying deal. Which team do you work for? We race dirt stuff across the southeast. I am sure you have not heard of us. Law. Part of the Outlaw series? We hope someday. I'm the chairperson of a culinary school. I love my work. No day is ever the same. We see students go from not knowing how to pick up a knife to real skills within a couple of years. Graduates get jobs quickly and go on to do all kinds of things. I started apprenticing as a cook in 1998. Completed the apprenticeship in 2002. Went to university to study history. Graduated PhD in food history in 2015. Was a professor at a culinary school and am now the chairperson. Hell yeah. I was unemployed and I was given a scholarship to a culinary school even though I had no cooking skills whatsoever. Because of that school giving me a chance, I learned a trade. Met my husband. Traveled around and worked in ski resorts, etc. Became independent and built a life. Culinary school rocks. I couldn't agree more. I had a similar experience. I get to do YouTube full-time building and engineering my dream cars. The best part about it, the crazier and more noteworthy, the more successful the video. It's like getting to be a car mechanic and only work on your own cars. So thankful for getting to this point. It took years of making videos for fun as an outlet for being in a dead-end town. Raw. Work in IT for public schools. It's great cause there is no expectation of making a profit. Just making the best environment for students and teachers. I see you got lucky enough to work for an awesome district. I was in IT in Chicago public schools and I remember being headbutted by a second grader. This event caused me to question my career decisions. VFX artist here. Some days are hard and the overtime can be killer. But overall I love my job. The projects are fun and the people even better. Concept artist for movies here. You have to remind yourself from time to time how ridiculously cool your job is. Even though it's insanely competitive and stressful. But the culture and brotherhood between artists is what makes it all worth it. How does one actually become a concept artist? Isn't it generally more a matter of being an artist and having someone making a movie go their aesthetic looks like it could work for us? That's a very rare scenario. And usually only happens with very stylized and artsy projects. It used to happen with POI like Geiger. But nowadays, I'd say 99% of professionals are working exclusively as concept artists. Since being able to draw cool characters and fitting into the whole production pipeline of a movie or game are two different skills. Firefighter/paramedic started as a 911 dispatcher when I was in my early 20s and going to college. Decided I wanted a more active role in emergency responses, so I became an EMTB in my mid-20s. Worked as a part-time EMT and full-time dispatcher while I went to school to become a paramedic. During my paramedic ride time with a nearby fire department, I impressed them enough where they strongly encouraged me to apply there to work as a firefighter and a medic. Finished up my medic program. Got my certifications. Got hired by the fire department. And then they sent me to the fire academy. Now here I am. Full-time firefighter/paramedic and part-time 911 dispatcher, because I also still enjoy that. Good for you. You're a legend. Agreed. And thank you for what you do. I work a standard 9-to-5 office job, but I love it and wouldn't want anything else just because of the people I work with. We're all friends and work doesn't feel like work. A friend of my brother brought me in. I work for a company with 30 employees and everyone is friends. We have a tabletop shuffleboard and air hockey next to a full bar in the office. We regularly take breaks to play games and relax, which has had huge benefits for my mentality at work. Sounds fun. What job is it? What do you reckon fosters the fun? Friendly environment? I'm a software engineer. A lot of it is everyone in the office has just let their guard down. Even with the company owner, I can just be myself without worrying about repercussions. Is it one of those startups that's always bankrupt in 5 years? Or is it established and stable? I'm a dog groomer and love my job. I started out at grooming school and then ended up working there afterwards. I now run my own business and am extremely passionate about what I do. It can be a harder job than people realize, but it makes it all worth it when the dogs leave my salon looking and feeling great. And seeing the owner's reactions. Oh my god. That was my first ever job. I tip my hat to you. People are genuinely shocked when I tell them how hard it is. I work as a freelance musician. It's badly paid, but I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And it took about 12 years of instrumental training to get to where I could make a living of it. What do you play? What kind of gigs do you find yourself doing? Drummer here. I'm a flute player, so largely classical, but I also play jazz piano, which I love but is more of a hobby. And it ranges from orchestral to recording work to the odd recital opportunities. It's a real mixed bag, but that's part of the fun. I'm a crisis counselor for a hotline for a non-profit that serves folks impacted by specific kinds of abuse. I do direct care, while also providing leadership and training as well. It's difficult work, and it wears me down some days, but I couldn't imagine having a job that didn't feel as meaningful and important. I love helping people, I love listening to people. It's scary calling somewhere and asking for help or asking for support. But sometimes you get people like me on the other end, who will do their best to make sure when the call is over you're feeling a little better. A little more hopeful and feeling a little safer. Thank you so much for what you do. I deliver grocery shopping to people across a large area. It's nice, because I get to talk to people. See different lives. Houses. Scenery. I get to listen to rock music whilst driving around in my van. The people I work with are amazing, and some of the managers are nice. I feel valued there. More than I've ever felt at any other job I've done. Also, a very important job at the moment. There is people in insulation, and delivery drivers could be the only friendly human face they see every few days. That is true. Before this coronavirus epidemic, I would go into some of these people's houses. You'd get all sorts of stories. Some which you never forget. My most heartbreaking was asking this old gentleman if everything was okay. He looked very disassociated with the world. Like he was performing movements in limbo. He told me straight out no. Actually, I've just had a call from the hospital to tell me my wife will very likely not make it through the night. I made sure he had someone to see to him. His son was coming up to stay with him. I cried when I got into my van after that. Then when I got to my next customer, I hoped I'd get a nice story from them to cheer me up. The lady had been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and was only given 3 months at most to live. She had 3 children. But you get moments where you feel wholesome. You help someone with advanced dementia to put away their shopping in the right place as their carer is a little late getting there. You help bed-bound people. One of which had a guide dog who opened the door for you and you'd give them a treat from the treat bowl. I helped an old couple out by lifting their old cooking unit into the boot of their car so they could take it to the dump tomorrow. I almost made my wages and tips recently. I drove 101 miles to the furthest parts our depot delivers to. For 5 customers. All who were self-isolating for different reasons. And on my travels, helped this teenager get his car out of the deep mud. He'd pulled over to take a phone call. Easily done for a novice driver. I was caked in mud after, but he gave me a tenner and very grateful. The list of stories goes on. And you get to exchange these with other drivers. It's great. Thank you for doing what you do. I was a union carpenter for 33 years before retirement. I wanted a job outside and walked onto a job site and asked for a job. Sometimes I love working as a finish carpenter because it can be really satisfying. Most of the time it fucking sucks the giant dick. Though. Pay is mediocre. Your physical health suffers. The trade is overrun with shady people. Etc. These right here are the reasons I left commercial carpentry. I was with a cabinetry shop for a while when I was taking college classes. And that definitely cut down on those shady people doing shoddy work that people want you to fix on the cheap, problem that's everywhere in commercial carpentry. But yeah. The thing that nobody seems to get about the trades is that they'll destroy your physical health. I got out of carpentry after less than a decade and my knees are still beaten to heck and back again. Accountant. Definitely not what people think of when they think enjoyable job. But stable. Predictable. And lucrative. If it works with your aptitudes. It's a great job that pays well that you can leave at the door each day. I'm an accounting major currently and I kept scrolling until I saw someone in the industry say something. That's a breath of fresh air since r/accounting is so negative on a regular day. And even worse now. I own a pub with 5 of my friends. Like no shit like Patty's Pub, except we are successful and don't have quite as many off-site adventures. I was trained at high-end restaurants and was a head chef for a few years, but then I turned 30 and thought fuck this, if I am gonna work 70 hours a week I should at least enjoy it. How has the pandemic affected your business? You guys doing okay? I'm a magician for a living. I mostly specialize in performing at corporate events all over the world. It had been a hobby since I was little. Throughout my childhood I always had a passion for theater. And eventually minored in it in college. I was working in sales after 8 years in the army. And decided to give it a shot. So. I went out and pitched a bunch of restaurants on the idea of having me come bounce around. Performing for people at their tables while they waited for their dinner. It was really well received. Eventually, I started booking bigger and bigger clients. I started doing a lot of work for the Philadelphia Phillies. And other famous companies/places. And I gradually became a bit of a local celebrity. After a few years, I was able to quit my day job. That was 5 years ago. I still remember my last day of work and how scared I was to take the leap. But looking back, it's the best thing I've ever done. I get to travel the world now and amaze people. And even more importantly, I have the time I need to develop and write my own material. Which is my favorite part of the job. I recently signed with one of the biggest agencies in the world. So before this pandemic put everything on hold, my career was skyrocketing too. Hopefully I can pick back up where I left off when this whole thing blows over. As for right now though, I'm basically unemployed for the next 8 weeks because everything is cancelled. This is awesome. I have been performing magic for 20-ish years. I did a lot of restaurants and private events for corporations for about 3 or 4 years in my early adulthood. I made a fair living. But it becoming a work thing all the time kind of killed my passion for it. I do still like to take a deck of cards to a brewery and dust off an old ACR in my free time. Here's to hoping you keep climbing, my friend. I used to think that getting a job with as high a salary as possible was the goal in life. I even pursued this for many years. Now I am sat on the uppermost cargo deck of a ro-ro vessel in the north of Europe. I can barely type because my fingers are freezing and covered in dust and grime. I am tired. My arms and back are sore from just lashing trailers, and I have many hours of work to go. I couldn't be happier. Nice dude. I couldn't do that at all. Reynolds says and thin as a stick. I'd freeze. I'm a teacher. Teaching social sciences to 16 to 18-year-olds. It's the only job I ever knew I wanted. I did a work placement / shadowing at university, and my supervisor / subject was so interesting. Enlightening and positive, it made me think, yeah, this looks cool. Things I like about it: I work with a fantastic team. And have been lucky enough to have done wherever I've worked. The young people I've worked with have been generally enthusiastic and on board. And I enjoy working out why the exceptions aren't. My subject is interesting, constantly shifting, and I like the challenge of making it work for different cohorts of students. I find constant satisfaction and reward in the moments when a topic starts to make sense for a student. And again, I like the challenge of making sure that happens. No 2 lessons are the same. No 2 days are the same. It's never dull, and there's always a new thing to throw yourself at. I've been doing it over 10 years, and I'm still in love with the job, although I've left a couple of places because I wasn't in love with them anymore. Plus, I've always been a massive nerd who enjoys telling people interesting facts and trivia. So I get to get paid for something I'd probably be doing anyway. Teacher here too. What I like about the job is that it's never the same. Every student is different. Every lesson is a whole new challenge, and every day is another victory. It keeps me alert, and I learn new things about others and myself all the time. I absolutely love seeing the students finally understand things and make connections on their own using the tools I gave them. Working with the people who will determine what our future as a species will be like is such a wondrously rewarding job. I honestly don't understand anyone who complains about today's youth and how they are lazy, good for nothing and stupid. They are determined and hard-working people who have really great plans and visions and can't wait to share it all with the world. Fuck yes, they are. Every year the students are more and more switched on to how the world really works. To them, I try not to get too preachy, which in a subject like mine is a hell of a gift and makes for really interesting discussion. I'm a carpenter who works on mansions on a private island. I kinda just fell into this job tbh. My girlfriend has a cousin whose father has some money and owns a custom carpentry company. We moved to their area and the father offered me a job. At the time, I was working at Papa John's and shit had been rough for a while. I have fallen in love with the job since. It's incredibly hard work, but at the end of the day, the satisfaction of being able to physically see the results of my efforts at the end of the day has worked wonders on my job motivation and mental health at work. Every morning, I watch the sunrise come over the ocean driving to work, and at lunch, I sit on the beach and watch the waves. I couldn't ask for a better location, better pay, or a better trade. Saying I'm in love with my job is an understatement. My work is becoming who I am and a big part of myself, and for the first time in my life I'm alright with it. I'm a phlebotomist. I never actually planned on becoming one. It just happened by accident. I volunteered as a receptionist in the lab my husband worked in at a USNH overseas to help with them being so understaffed. I took an interest after watching the phlebotomist there. Asked him to teach me. And I got my ASCP license the following year after submitting my paperwork for OJT. I've been doing it for the past 8 years and love it. I've worked in military hospitals, civilian outpatient clinics, and I'm currently at a VA hospital. How's the pay? I'm kinda reconsidering my job in light of the crisis. Do you just need the license for it? I'm no longer at this job because I needed higher pay. But the only job I've ever had where I was genuinely happy was when I worked on a farm. Mostly in the super cute country store that they had. But you also had to do all the packaging of the things they baked in their kitchen. You had to go pick up meat from the butcher. You had to learn everything you could about plants. But it was never once a stressful job. I loved going into work every day. I truly and genuinely never had a single complaint, and it makes me sad every day that the pay was too low to stay. I genuinely would have worked there until I was 80 years old if I could have. It reminds me of a time when I worked on a ranch and a farm. I hated living away from society, but aside from that I loved the work/peacefulness. I'm a bartender now, but I dream of just driving a tractor around AD fixing fences. I play a lot of Stardew Valley because the daydreams weren't cutting it anymore, and I always used to love Harvest Moon Law. I am a conservation worker. We plant trees, remove weeds, and generally rehabilitate areas, particularly waterways. Every day is outside work. In the most beautiful forests sometimes. It can be difficult, but it is such a rewarding job. I got the job because one morning I decided to go for a walk. I never walk. And ended up at a market where I started talking to a guy about the environment. One of those things that just magically fall into place. What kind of places should I look at applying for a job like this? I'm a couples therapist. After years in the corporate world, I went back to school, and now I get to help PPL every day. It's serious work with PPL, who have real problems, and I'm having the best time ever. I'd love to see a couples therapist do an AMA. Maybe in /r/relationships. Or elsewhere. What do you think are society's current biggest misconceptions in regards to what's required to make a relationship work? Also, when you see a couple, do you find that problems in a relationship stem from one of the two? Or is it more often mutual behavior that need to be worked on? Good questions. And I agree. An AMA would be very interesting. That said, law. Two jokes come to mind. One, based on most of the comments in r/relationships. I think they already have plenty of couples counselors answering their advice. 2, by the end of the AMA. That sub would have the counselor convinced he needs to get divorced, hit the gym, and start a bonfire with his laptop and phone. I'm a military photographer. I discovered it was a job that existed about 5 years before I got in, and immediately knew it would be my dream job. At the time, it felt unattainable. There are less than 10 of them in the country, and the turnover rate is incredibly low. The job required a photography degree, which I was already studying. While at uni, I threw myself in front of every hustle that would help me. The whole while never expecting a position to open or me to be good enough. I took photography jobs or picked assignments that would look good on my portfolio. Lots of documentary work, events, sports, and portraiture. I worked in some service jobs part-time, but also took up a couple manual labor gigs to help get stronger. I'm 5'5" and was just over 50 kilograms. A couple years later, I ended up working at a big military air show, and was introduced to the photographers. They told me to apply ASAP as there was one non-advertised position about to be filled. They already had a guy lined up for it, but once my application was through, I was accepted into the trade and started basic training a year later. The head photographer remembered me, having approached him right at the beginning of all this and asking, "What do I have to do to get your job?" He was stoked for me, and is an amazing role model in the trade. This is the job of my dreams, that I worked my ass off for, never expecting to actually get. As a photographer straight out of uni, The supplied equipment and salary are amazing. But more importantly, I have the most incredible, challenging and dramatic subject matter to work with. I get to travel to incredible places and get pushed to be better and do more with my life. I have an incredible team and I know how lucky I am. It's a bit sick how excited I am to go to work every day. Do you mind sharing your portfolio? Or a gallery to get an idea of the type of photographs you take? Thanks. Seems like a great job. I took a computer-aided drafting course, AutoCAD Release 10, during my senior year in high school back in 1993. Within a week I knew this is what I wanted to do. 27 years later and I'm using AutoCAD Civil 3D 2019 at a small engineering firm and truly enjoy it. I own and run my own BJJ Academy. It's been my dream since I was 18 and I've loved every second of it over the last 2 years it's been open. Unfortunately due to the shutdowns, it's really suffering GGWP world. Piloting. Childhood dream come true and views are great. Worked hard and lucked into a sponsored program by an airline. Flight instructor currently. Timing isn't great right now. But once the economy recovers the pilot shortage will come back even stronger. Getting to fly planes for a living is the greatest thing I could do. And I've come to enjoy the teaching aspect a lot more than I thought I would.